Today on Political Access, we're going to take an updated look at the 2024 general election. So this will be a little bit quicker, but we'll start here on Wikipedia. I've got the 2024 election up, and you can read all about that here if you'd like. It covers some potential issues, some of the other candidates that may or may not be entering the race. But the thing I want to point out first is there was a redistricting cycle since the 2020 election. So if we pull up the map here, this will show you which states have gained and which have lost since 2020. So one state gained 2 electoral votes, that is Texas. So they'll have 38 votes plus 2 more for their senators for a total of 40 electoral votes. Now other states that gained on here, Oregon, Montana, Colorado, Florida, and North Carolina all gained 1 electoral vote. In exchange for those states gaining, there were some states that had to lose out on some votes. California, they lost an electoral vote. Also Illinois, Michigan, Ohio, New York, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia, they all lost an electoral vote. Now last year, I did review every single redistricting map on this channel, so take a look at those if you'd like. They're all in a playlist, and I do recommend it. But anyway, we have 7 electoral votes that have been moved from one state and reallocated to another state. It probably is a little bit of a net gain for Republicans. They'll gain 2 in Texas, 1 in Florida, North Carolina, and Montana. But you never know, by the end of the decade, if Texas went blue, that'd be a massive blow to the Republicans. Even if they're able to confidently win Florida, then they would really have to be winning back that Rust Belt, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan every time to make up for that deficit. So overall, a bit of an edge for the Republicans on reapportionment, and in a close election, that might play a role. So if we jump ahead to 2024 and take a look at the polling, the most likely matchup, but it's not a guarantee, is between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. It would be a rematch. Most people don't want this rematch, but either way, it would be epic whether you think it's positive or negative. So in the aggregate, on Real Clear Politics, we can see that it's almost tied. Donald Trump has a 0.4 of a point advantage, 44.1 to 43.7. 12.2% are undecided. So that's entirely insignificant, especially this far out. It doesn't really matter what the polls are. Everyone wants to look at them when they're popular, disregard them when they're unpopular. So if we look at the individual polls, it's mostly back and forth. Biden does seem to be leading more of them, especially if you go further back. But Biden really is in the mid-40s about. Some of them are in the low 40s. A couple get to the high 40s. With Trump, his is also mostly scattered around the 40s. Undecided usually is in the double-digit range, up to 20%. Now, Trump is already running. He, of course, has to get through that primary. If voters don't want to see him run again, they also don't want to see Biden run again. And Trump is not in office. He's not really in the limelight at the moment. Once the primaries and then the election really started heating up, then the media would completely put the spotlight back on Trump. And I'm sure almost all of the coverage would be completely negative. And that could affect the outcome, could cost Trump a couple of points. People are probably burnt out. They have Trump fatigue. They don't want to deal with that again. But on the other hand, maybe Biden ends up in a couple of scandals. Maybe the economy, inflation are still killing everybody. Then that could hurt Biden, and Trump will be right back in this thing, if not the favorite at that point. So if you scroll down and look through these old polls going back to last year, it's still back and forth. Trump does seem to be leading more of these polls leading up to the midterms. But again, I don't think it's really all that significant. Then they have some other matchups here. We've got Biden versus Trump versus Andrew Yang. That's a pretty outlandish one, but it's a similar result. Biden with a slight edge. Yang seems to draw support away from both of the candidates. We've also got Biden versus Trump versus Liz Cheney as an independent. That one, surprisingly, actually has Donald Trump in the lead, but he's only at about 40%. Now down here we have another potential major matchup, that is Biden versus Ron DeSantis. And on Real Clear Politics, in the aggregate, DeSantis has the same lead Trump had, 0.4%. And in the individual polls, it's again back and forth, both candidates in the low to mid 40s. And it's hard to say what would actually happen. Everybody does know Biden. Of course, he's in office. Ron DeSantis, I think a lot of people have heard about him. They know he's a Republican. They know he's in Florida. Probably a lot of the coverage is negative, unless it's from a conservative outlet. But people that don't follow politics, which is a lot of people, or people who minimally follow politics, they're not really going to be too familiar with Ron DeSantis. So it's tough to say how his favorability ratings would change once he launched a national campaign and really started getting out there across the country. And then again, I do think most of the media would paint him in a negative light. He won a landslide re-election, but he is not very well liked, even though he is getting more establishment support. A lot of the corporations, a lot of the media, they think he's too divisive, and they don't want him. I've heard him called worse than Trump. To me, that doesn't make any sense. If anything, he's probably more electable than Trump, given he has less baggage. So you can scroll down here, look through some more of these matchups. Here's another notable one, Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump. Trump actually has a decent lead on this, 3.7%. He leads virtually every one of these individual polls. Some of them are tied. That's more indicative that Harris is a weak candidate. She's unpopular. But if we go down to Harris versus DeSantis, the recent polls do show DeSantis in the lead. Before the midterms, though, Harris, she was in the lead. A lot of that is probably because DeSantis' name recognition did go up since last fall, and he won that re-election, and Harris hasn't really gained any popularity. So that's the polling for the major matchups. We can do one more thing and get on Predict It and see what the markets are showing, and this asks which party will win the 2024 election, but that's essentially a 50-50 tie, and you could basically flip a coin. So that's how things look right now for 2024 in the general election. So many things would come up and change over the next year and a half. I don't want to begin to predict how it would go, but either way, that is an updated look at the 2024 general election. Let me know in the comments, what do you think is going to happen in this election? Is it going to be Trump versus Biden? Does anybody have an edge? What do you think is going to change between now and election day? Let me know down below. On your way out, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next video.